Come with me to a magical place where being labeled the pork queen is a compliment, where being nice is just a way of life, and where all leaders of the free world must pass through. Welcome to Iowa. Whether you're a current Iowan, an Iowa expat, or an Iowan at heart, this show is for you. This is the Iowa Podcast. Real Iowans, real talk, no drama. I'm Justin Brady, and today I'm joined by Leisa Fox, the founder of, well, maybe you should say the name. Welcome to the show, Leisa.
Thank you very much, Justin. It is MakeDSM. Super excited about it.
I am too, because today the topic is manufacturing and how a bunch of economic changes are going to send a lot of manufacturing opportunity to Iowa. And, of course, what that means for you, even if you're not in manufacturing. But before we do that, have you subscribed yet? You can subscribe in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, iHeart, all the podcast players really easily. But there is a little bit of a trick to it because, some of them are follow, some of them are subscribe. Now, the Iowa Podcast is free no matter which platform you use. However, on Apple Podcasts, there's a tiny little plus button that you have to look for in the top right. That's how you subscribe or follow for some reason in that platform. So make sure you subscribe really quickly. That just makes sure every time we upload a new Iowa podcast, it comes right to your phone. Okay, Leisa, perhaps the best thing is what's that 30-second overview of what MakeDSM is?
MakeDSM is a network of manufacturers and those who support them to create a vibrant infrastructure, sharing best practices, leveraging resources, and just helping one another navigate through complex issues. Because there is no more complex an industry than manufacturing.
And now, is it like an association, or is it a for-profit entity, a non-profit entity? What category does it fall into?
It is a non-profit member association.
Okay, got it. So,
Yep.
Go ahead.
And it is housed under FuseDSM. And the goal for Trish Barnes, who runs FuseDSM, is to create value to their largest industry segment, which is manufacturing, wholesale distribution, and construction. Makers.
Now, what is FuseDSM? Because I don't think people, so MakeDSM is a part of FuseDSM, and what is FuseDSM?
FuseDSM is a chamber of commerce that covers Des Moines proper, except for that very center part of Des Moines. So all of those industrial areas in Des Moines are within their footprint.
Okay, got it. So would it be fair to say MakeDSM is a Des Moines thing, obviously, because of the DSM in there?
Yes, I would suffice it to say that it's more central Iowa focused.
Sure, yeah.
So, yeah, and I'm having great conversations with other chamber leaders, Tiffany Menke over at Urbandale, Amanda down in Indianola. I'm having conversations with Ankeny to see if there isn't a way for us all to work together to serve this critical part of our economy.
Sure. So anyone can talk about creating a new thing, right? Like there's a lot of people that talk, they want to do this, they see a problem, they see a challenge and they want to solve it. But is this going to catch on? Because I know that you've actually I know that you actually have a lot of momentum building behind this. So can you tell me about who are some of the organizations that have already joined and are ready to launch with you?
You bet. I started this in mid-November, remember. So I was approached. I was actually sitting on a beach in Mexico. At the time, I was doing the same type of work down in Missouri for the Missouri State Chamber. I was spending about every other week, 4 days or so, down in the St. Louis area. And don't give me time idle, Justin, because it's dangerous. And as I was sitting on the beach in Mexico with my best friend, I started thinking about all of the time, effort, and resources I was spending to build a very similar network in Missouri. And I looked at my best friend Tanya and I said, I don't want to do that anymore. These aren't my people, and I'm not as passionate about what I'm creating there as I would be if I were creating it here. So I said those words out loud. And you know what happens when you say something out loud? It is, it sets those wheels in motion, Justin.
It happened, yeah.
And so I said to Tanya, I think I'm done. I think I got to be done. I want to concentrate my efforts in Iowa. Literally, we leave Cancun we had to be at the airport at 4:00 that morning. I hit the ground in Dallas at DFW at about noon, opened up my phone, and I had a message from Michael Bird with Spindustry saying, you have some capacity right now? I've got a project I think you'd be perfect for. Michael is on the board for FuseDSM. He and I share this passion for truly serving manufacturers. And we have for probably 15 years. And I said, what are you thinking? We had the conversation on Friday. I met with Trish Barnes, the CEO of FuseDSM, the next Monday. We put this thing together that week. I started talking to manufacturers in the area, asking them the question, Justin, does something like this already exist? Do you have a forum already that gathers manufacturers together and shares best practices, identifies emerging solutions to issues, aggregates resources? And they said, no, there's nothing like that right now. So fast forward the next few weeks, I had to figure out how to fund this thing, right?
Right.
Funding.
So you have some sponsors, I think, that have stepped up. And would you mind telling us who those are?
You bet. Spindustry was the first one. So Michael Bird said, I'm in. Rain Recruiting, Bricktree, Bergen KDV, the Iowa Clinic. Bing Bang is our marketing partner. And I just got word yesterday that True North companies will come in and help us with employee benefits and risk management solutions.
Got it. So why the focus on manufacturing in Iowa right now? Where was that need? It's obviously we have a strong manufacturing sector. We have companies all over. So what was the point that you're or I guess I should say, what is it that manufacturing companies really do need? They need the resources. They're not represented. They don't have that forum. Is it as simple as that?
I would say it's aligning resources, Justin.
Sure.
I had a meeting at lunch today with Stephanie Oppel with DMAC. She is leading efforts on Iowa Learns. I know you're familiar with that program.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What they need, Justin, is a voice that is pulling all of these resources together. Iowa Workforce Development, Iowa Economic Development Authority, the Greater Des Moines Partnership, the Iowa Business Council, for sure the Iowa Association of Business and Industry, of which I was a staff person for 11 years,
right.
are all doing wonderful things serving manufacturers. But there's not one unified landing point that brings them all to the attention of these manufacturers. I hope that our group, at least for Central Iowa, can provide that conduit from the disparate partners serving this audience to those manufacturers, where those manufacturers live. That's the other challenge. Manufacturers are infinitely busy. And so getting their attention is very, very difficult. So it's going to take several touch points within the organization to make this happen. But I firmly believe that with the right resources and the right tools, we can make that happen.
I'm sure you're familiar then with, I think it was in the Wall Street Journal broke the story about how Apple is pulling out of China, right? I talked about this.
Oh my gosh.
I've talked about this
Justin,
on another show, right?
right.
And there's a big trend. I shouldn't say they're pulling out of China. They're pulling a lot of stuff out of China, not everything. But there is this big trend of people trying to localize supply chains within their areas, right? So, of course, that means U.S. manufacturers localizing supply chains. in the United States, obviously. So because Iowa's centrally located, has good interstate activity, cheap energy, and lots of land, is this a really big opportunity for central Iowa and the state in general?
I think it's a great opportunity. In fact, like I mentioned, was working in Missouri recently, and they passed legislation just last session that funds semiconductor manufacturing and accelerates their R&D programs for pharmaceutical manufacturing. And so looking at those programs, also looking at the incredible work that my former colleague, Katie Kerwin, is doing with their apprenticeship program in Missouri, I think there are best practices from across the country that I've become aware of because of my state chamber network that we can bring right here to central Iowa and beyond. But you are absolutely right. Creating that ecosystem, I always think about colleagues and friends of mine in manufacturing who might have a production line that becomes available because they lose a client, whether that's to bankruptcy or to another competitor. Wouldn't it be great in the state of Iowa if a person who needs the part becomes aware of that production line that all of a sudden becomes available, and we can, be a matchmaker for those manufacturers?
Yeah. And so what are the things that organizations, because I know that, people are seeing this trend, right? They're seeing the pullout. They're seeing people localizing supply chains. They're seeing how Iowa geographically, let's just talk geographically alone. I don't want to do the rah, 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 our state's the best dance, right? Like if you live here, you probably like the state, would be my guess. But let's just do the geographic game and the centrally located game alone, right? Which we have a huge advantage there. Like I said, lots of land that's cheaper than like East Coast or something, and cheap energy. So like if you're an Iowa company or if you're an Iowa lawmaker, obviously these are very separate conversations, but what are those things? Who are the entities that should be acting right now, and what should they be doing? Is it more of a sit back and wait and hope companies come here? Or is there something that these entities, these public, these private, and these public-private partnership people can do?
Well, there's one thing that we haven't touched on that is probably our greatest barrier to entry, and that's the workforce, right?
Sure.
So without employees to do the job or accelerated automation opportunities to automate these things. And again, there are best practices all over the country that we can point to that are funding automation. And there are public-private partnerships there that we can look at. So I think anything is on the table right now. I think any of those partnerships we need to be looking at. There is an inordinate amount of funding available right now from the federal government to support careers in STEM, to support accelerated automation. So let's look at those and let's make sure that the manufacturers are aware of it. We have a great ecosystem within our government. Debbie Durham does a fantastic job with economic development and now with workforce development. And combining those two, I think will make it even more powerful. I think that's fantastic. And we've got a governor that is pro-business and is trying her best to create opportunities for these manufacturers. But at the end of the day, the manufacturers have to pay attention to the programs that are available. And that's sometimes where things get lost in translation. Those manufacturers are so busy, head down in their business, they're not looking up at the opportunities right in front of you. And so I'm taking that challenge on personally, Justin, to cultivate relationships with them and really provide a resource that they can't ignore with MakeDSM.
Yeah, I mean, so organizations basically need to be aware that this is coming and to make preparations now and to invest in these in this talent pipeline, essentially, because if you don't know this influx is coming, you don't see it, right? And the signs are there. You hear me talk, you hear Wall Street Journal talking about it. You hear Leisa talking about it. You, of course, talking about you third person. But you're basically saying the signs are there. Start making preparations to fill your pipeline because it's coming. And I do like how you say invest in more automation, because there's just this, I think, very toxic talking point that AI and automation are going to take jobs. And I have devoted a lot of my life to learning all about AI and automation, and every expert I talk to on both sides, I mean, it seems like the consensus is that AI and automation create more jobs than they take. And the big negative I see there is some people raise the concern like, well, what about in the intermediary? That's the big debate. But over the next 10, 20 years, automation, AI create jobs. And you're saying that we have a big opportunity here in the state. Well,
and we're at negative percentages in
already
workforce participation.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you look at labor participation rates, we're at the same labor participation rate the United States was in 1978. I don't look at unemployment numbers. Unemployment, once you've burned through your unemployment, you go into this abyss, right, and you get lost in translation. The only number that matters to me is that labor participation rate. And it is awful.
Right.
So
I think a lot of people, at least lately, because I want to, obviously manufacturing jobs, and we'll talk about the economics of that in a second here and why that actually matters, right? Because it's one thing to say we should have more manufacturing jobs here, but it's another for the average Iowan to say, okay, I just don't care. I don't care if you have more manufacturing jobs. My job's fine. I'm fine. Everything's fine. I don't really care. Shut up. Right. So we'll get into why that actually matters for the whole state in a second. But one of the things that's gotten a lot of attention in like the past decade, I would say, is like tech jobs. Like that's the sexy thing, is tech. And the states, cities, local governments have spent quite a bit of money trying to woo and attract like Facebook, Google, and Apple are the three big ones that come to mind. Was that necessary? Was that kind of a mistake? Should we have invested in more of manufacturing?
I don't think it's one or the other. I don't think we needed to choose. We could certainly do both. The great thing about those technology companies is they don't take a great labor base, right? They're not sucking up our talent pool. And they're bringing in inordinate amounts of R&D and infrastructure. I mean, I look at all of the construction that it took to build those buildings. My gosh, sure, that was a boon to this economy. And think of all the people that were employed through those projects. So I don't think it has to be one or the other. I think we should be definitely concentrating on manufacturing, though, and recruiting as many as we possibly can. In fact, one of my members, when I was at the Missouri Chamber, is choosing to grow in Iowa because of its accessibility to water, to power, and our roads. So, yeah, we're doing great here. But again, I go back to Jim Collins, one of my favorite authors of all time. Don't let good be the enemy of great. Yeah, things are good here. But for Pete's sake, let's make them better.
So what does
do everything we can to do that.
So what does like a more vibrant, a more rich manufacturing base actually do for the state?
Oh my gosh. Well, I've got some statistics that I'd love to share.
Oh yeah, Iowans are all about the statistics and hard data. Absolutely.
So for every dollar of domestic manufacturing value added, another $3.60 of economic activity is generated elsewhere across the economy. That's huge.
Yeah.
So it's a multiplier effect. For every manufacturing job, there are 3.4 jobs created in non-manufacturing industries. Think about all of the support that goes into a manufacturing ecosystem.
Sure.
You've got logistics, you've got transportation, you've got robotics, you've got construction. So it's infinite. And a vibrant manufacturing base at the end of the day leads to more research and development, innovation, productivity, exports, and middle-class jobs. And that's across all other industries.
So I want to dig into what you just said. You mentioned For every manufacturing job, there are, how many was that? There are 3.4?
3.4.
First of all, I want to know who this 0.4 guy is or gal. Like, who's that person?
Right.
Just kidding. No,
Or
I guess
you.
part-time, right? 0.4, that's a part-time.
It's a 1099 like me, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like me as well. And you mentioned that 3.4 jobs are created in non-manufacturing industries, and you gave a few examples: logistics, robotics, transportation. So these are other areas that local businesses could be, and local entrepreneurs could be getting ready for, because if they know there's going to be more manufacturing jobs created, they know that they're going to need services, logistics, robotics, transportation, support. What businesses, and maybe this is an unfair question because I'm popping this out on you, but like what other businesses come to mind that manufacturers typically need support from? Like what can entrepreneurs be creating right now to get ready for that?
Well, think about the marketing that it takes to market a product. Your job, Justin, your podcasting work supports manufacturing. Packaging. Think about all the packaging that it takes. Shipping, receiving. The more lean we get as a country and our manufacturers get, the more they outsource the non-critical parts of their business and those that aren't productive. So I'd say the sky's the limit. Outside of making that widget, everything else could be a supportive industry. HR, more and more companies are outsourcing their HR. They're outsourcing their accounting.
Like, do we see decreases in cost of living, and like what kind of runway do we see in that area?
Well, I would say you'd see an increase in cost of living. So average income earners in manufacturing are higher. The median income is higher in manufacturing than many, many industries. And it's more stable. I mean, look at any community in the state of Iowa that has a vibrant, healthy manufacturing base. Look at Pella. Look at the Quad Cities. Look at Cedar Rapids. They're the ones that are growing. The ones that don't have a vibrant manufacturing economy kind of die on the vine.
I'm going to ask about competition in a bit, but I think one thing that comes to mind is, now you probably know this one actually, Leisa, but was it Marshalltown that had like the Maytag?
Newton.
Was it Newton? It was Newton. So I know that maybe some Iowans are a little apprehensive because they think about like Newton and they think about Maytag going to, I think, was it Mexico? It got exported over to Mexico.
Well, and here's the other thing, Justin. You had this conversation in your podcast with Adi, and I encourage everybody to listen to that because it was so insightful. What you're talking about, and I think we've learned a lot from our mistakes, is stakeholder versus shareholder ROI and shareholder value, stakeholder value. So companies today, I think, understand they have to invest in their communities. They have to invest in their employees. They have to do the right thing by their customers, or they're not going to be around tomorrow.
Yeah, it's the podcast you're referring to, for those that don't know, I have another podcast called The Justin Brady Show, and you were just listening to the interview with Adi Ignatius, the editor-in-chief of Harvard Business Review. So that's what you're referring to. But I think one of the things that's changed, because my concern, not my concern, but I think I can hear other Iowans in my ear saying, hey, Leisa and Justin, this is great. We like this, whole bringing manufacturing to Iowa thing, but we've done that years ago and it didn't end well. And a lot of people lost their jobs and we were sunk. And so I don't know if I want to go back down that road again. I don't know if I want to get ready for these manufacturers, get all these jobs that we based our entire town around for them to pull out again. And just based on, like I was talking earlier, do you think automation and AI have changed that game? Like, is this a risk anymore because of new advances in technology that make it like feasible and make it budget friendly to operate within the U.S.?
Well, the initial investment for a lot of that is super expensive, right? So depending on the complexity of the manufacturer. So automation, if it's available to these folks, it makes things a lot easier. But again, it's expensive, and that initial capital expenditure is huge. But once they get that automation rolling, and you look at companies like Pellicorp and Vermeer and Craig Tool, I mean, my gosh. And these are businesses that are entrenched in the communities. Yeah, there's always a risk, right? Anything can happen, but there's a risk with anything.
So, I mean, let's talk about competition a little bit, because we're probably in the state of Iowa not the only ones who see this writing on the wall, right? And we're also not the only ones centrally located. We have neighboring states. You mentioned you've done previous work in Missouri, I think, right? Missouri? Yeah. So are other states working on this as well? Are we ahead of the curve here? Are we behind the curve? Where do we sit?
Many states, so I have been a part of the state chamber network across the country for the better part of 20 years. And many states actually have a competitiveness gauge, a dashboard that they use, and they are constantly monitoring their position versus other states on things like fourth grade reading level,
Right.
graduation rates, high school graduation, number of people in STEM careers. And there's a constant dashboard that monitors their status. And they make that their legislative priority for the year. Missouri has that. Oklahoma has that. Indiana, Wisconsin, many of those have. And they call them 2030 plans or future, strategies for the state. I would love to see something like that. Alert, we've got an issue. There's an issue here, so we can catch it before it becomes a problem.
So we're not really sure where we sit. Is that what you're telling me? We're not really sure how we compare to other states?
I did a lot of research for this show, actually, to see where we fall, what is available out there, and there's not much available, quite frankly.
Interesting. Okay. I mean, so I guess we could guess then that they're probably on the same. They're kind of smelling the same scent. Would be my guess. We don't know we don't know how early they are, but we can assume they see the same opportunities.
I hope so.
And we have some natural advantages over some other states, right? I mean, I think one thing that a lot of people don't realize is the reason we have all these wind turbines, and people are just like, well, Iowa's just ahead of the curve, which is, true, but the reason we have the wind turbines is geography or weather patterns, I should say. Like, we have some major wind channels that come over the state, which is why you don't see wind turbines in other states. You see them in Iowa and Texas, and there are some other states as well. But the reason for that is because the wind does not move the same way in every state. And so that's one of the reasons we get this cheap energy. And one of the reasons perhaps we might not, fingers crossed, I guess, might not have the competition. How do we stay ahead then? Like, obviously, MakeDSM, these are things you're doing, and, combining everyone together, giving them a forum, preparing the next workforce, investing in automation. Are there any other things we can do as we wrap this up?
Justin, I would say the number one thing we can do is collaborate and learn and share from one another. If there's one thing I learned about my time working in Missouri, Iowans are by nature sharers and collaborators. They're willing to partner. They're willing to open up their doors and say, this is how we're doing it. Learn from me. I'll help you. It's like our large manufacturers, and this is my hope for MakeDSM. We have two very different demographics of manufacturers. You have Kemen and Vermeer and Craig and these mature DZ, mature, large manufacturers who are already probably optimally automated and are doing the right things with apprenticeships and internships and school to work programs. They are more than willing and actually benefit from helping those smaller contract manufacturers replicate some of the same things that they're doing. And so, again, that's part of that ecosystem I'm hoping to create here is those large manufacturers saying, here, come with me. I'm going to show you how we did it.
Yeah.
And helping these small to mid-sized manufacturers. My philosophy forever has been a high tide lifts all boats. And so that's my hope here.
Leisa Fox.
We rise the tide.
Leisa Fox, founder of MakeDSM. Is there a website people can go to or somewhere they can go to learn more information?
Right now, I've got a link off of the Fuse DSM website. So that is www.fusedsm.com. And they can get to that link. Again, this started mid-November. So you are breaking this news, Justin. And more will be coming out soon. But there will be a link off of the Fuse DSM.
And the official kickoff for MakeDSM is what?
March 1st. Yes.
And okay, cool. So March 1st, there's a link at Fuse DSM. Leisa Fox, founder of MakeDSM. Thank you so much for coming on the Iowa podcast and breaking this. I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks so much, and let's stay in touch.
And to my fellow Iowans, Iowa expats, and Iowans at heart, thanks for listening and subscribing to the Iowa podcast.